So today we are back in the studio for a still life painting. This still life painting is from March 2024. Here's the subject on your left, and here's my limited palette. I did a video about my limited palette where I present all the colors, so you can check that out if you haven't seen it. Here I'm sketching the subject, and I go with a simple shape first. Is a fairly simple subject in appearance, but this painting will offer a few challenges, so I will talk about that today. One of the challenges was the nature of the subject. Is a translucent subject, so the light go through the subject and so affect the shadow, affect the cast shadow of the subject. The other challenge was the chain, how to render the chain without illustrating it, how to suggest the links of the chain without drawing, illustrating each individual link. That was the biggest challenge of that painting. And right now I'm still establishing everything. As you can see here, I always say that the values are the most important in a painting, at least in a realistic impression of a painting. So here, as you can see, the shadow, the cast shadow appears very, very dark, and it's very important to never judge a value that you put down your surface before your context is fully established. So here I'm establishing the context, I'm finishing establishing the context. It's not completely established yet, so establishing a context, it means that all your values are down on the surface and there is no more white of the surface, and that way you can judge your value properly. If you judge your value before the neighboring value to be at least in the ballpark, more or less accurate, it's never gonna work. You're always gonna think that your values are either too dark, either too light. So here I'm just adjusting the value according to what I see in front of me with my subject. And you will see that the keychain, it's really the biggest challenge for me. The chain itself in the subject is really the biggest challenge, and at the beginning I thought it would be the translucency of the subject that would be the biggest challenge, but it was actually fairly easy to get this translucency correct. There is probably something to say about the shadow. I will mention that at the end, what I think is wrong about the shadow. But overall, I'm very happy with that painting, and I think even though the shadow could be better, it still reads correctly, and it's a wonderful little painting. So this painting is part of a series of two paintings that I did back in March 2024. To pay homage to Akira Toirama. Akira Toirama passed away last March, and it was a very sad news for all of us lovers of his creation. To name a few, Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump. I did so much more, but so I wanted to pay homage to Akira Toirama in my own way. So I chose two subjects that I had in my studio. That is from Akira Toirama. So here the first was this keychain, and the second will come soon in a video. But the second is fairly more complicated, so I felt I needed a warm up before tackle the second subject. So I started with that keychain, and there is no easy painting, so it was not easy to paint that, but it was very, very nice to do it, and I'm really happy with the result. So here, as I mentioned earlier, the big challenge was to suggest the chain and not falling in the trap to try to illustrate the chain. I will never use a smaller brush than a flat number 0, so it's a small brush, but it's still big enough to not be able to paint as much detail as you would if I had a point brush yeah, point brush, not flat but pointy, and maybe 0 or even less. Yeah. So I will redo this keychain many times, and that's okay. As you can see, to be able to paint over the keychain at some point, if I'm thinking that if I think that the keychain is bad and needs to be redone, I just remove the paint of the surface. This is very easy to do. You just remove the paint of the surface with anything you have. It can be a paper towel, it can be a scraper. Be careful to not damage the panel, but yeah, just with a paper towel it's good. You can remove the first layers with a palette knife, that I guess is the best, and then remove the rest with the paper towel. It's harder to manipulate paint when you paint on top of many layers, so it's better to remove altogether if the change is radical, like the change for that chain was pretty radical. That chain didn't work for a while because the proportion were not accurate. So I'm not looking for drawing exactly what I see in front of me. This is often way too complicated, and I just don't want to do it. So this chain, for example, the links, I didn't want to draw all the links, so I needed to find a way with my brush stroke and with the correct value at the correct place. I needed to find this combination between these three things to put down for the chain to work. You will see that in the end it works pretty good. And I never painted any links. I just put the correct value at the place that I thought it was perfect or good enough. And yeah, that's it. And talking about values, it was very, very important to have this effect on the ball, the light on the ball that hits the ball right there. It was very important that I keep in check all my values. So you see the chain itself has a I think it has a higher value already than the ball. So it's very easy when you put the light on the chain to not pay attention and to put a light that is too high in value. And if I would have put a light on the chain itself that is higher in value than the lightest light on my ball, I would have lost all the effect I wanted with the ball. And this is it's a game changer once you start to understand that the values are the first thing to pay attention to, and to manipulate sometimes the value of the scene you have in front of you in order to communicate the right message. Well, this is a game changer in a painting. And it's okay to not succeed, but each time to do that. But it's so important in the learning process to keep. I keep reminding myself that the values, and the hierarchy of the values, where the hierarchy goes, it's very, very important. So usually the highest value and the highest contrast point area needs to be in your center of interest. And here my center of interest within that simple object that is a keychain is the ball itself. When you step back, you see the keychain first, the whole thing, but your eyes needs to go directly maybe on the ball, because this is the main point of interest, and then see the whole thing. When it's one object like that, it's impossible to dictate what the viewer is gonna see. Some people's gonna see the whole thing first, some people's gonna land the eyes on the ball, but my job is to make sure at least that their eyes goes on the ball, and that they find interest in that area. I think this is a success for me at this stage, at least in my learning process. I think I rendered that ball pretty nicely. I'm very happy. Of course, there is always room for improvement, but it's very important to be happy with our painting, because this is what gives us the energy to keep going and to keep painting, because it's often the case that we can end up not happy and frustrated about our painting. So when the success comes, even if it's a small success, it can be a success on one little challenge that you set for yourself, but if that's a success, we have to take it arms open and be very happy about it. So yeah, here I will already mention that for example, I'm talking about the values, and this is where I think this painting lacks something, is that even though it appears very bright to me, the yellow in the shadow, this is still, even if it's translucent, this is still part of the shadow world, and the shadow world should never compete with the light world. It should stay within the shadow world. Therefore, this light shadow, this yellow in the shadow, should have been a little darker.